songs, let me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc, where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
Get creative with it, create some fun videos that catch people's attention. Just know that, it's going to be a slow process. Sometimes it's not going to boom overnight. You might have a couple years of slow growth, but slow growth is better than no growth. So you want to just keep plugging away.
All right, we are live again. This is Craig LeBlanc, the Daily Parks and Rec Show, part of the DPRS Media Network family, the largest media network dedicated to the Parks and Rec industry exclusive. We have a whole family of shows. This is the leadership series where we find people that are in Parks and Recreation, moving up in leadership, or a director or superintendent. We have a special guest with us today, David Mullen from Parkville, Missouri. But before we get started with that, I just wanted to kind of give you all a lineup of the different shows that we produce each week. So today we have, let me start with Monday. Monday, on the second and fourth Monday of every month, we have the Smart Parks Forward with Dave Ramirez, and that show is sponsored by Outdoor Link, which is one of our great sponsors of DPRS Media Network. And then today we have On the Front Line with Jonathan Prue, all things MWR, the military Parks and Rec department. So if you've played basketball or anything on a military base, there is some military Parks and Rec professional that's kind of running that whole show across the 300 military bases across the world. And so John does a great job on that show. Wednesdays, we work with Henry County, Georgia, producing two shows on the first and second Wednesdays of every month. The first Wednesdays is Safe Spaces with Thomas White. And then the whole department or the whole team at Henry County, Georgia picks a topic on the second Wednesday of every month and produces what we call the Rec Room. And that's where they go take a deep dive on one specific topic that a Parks and Rec department handles. And you get to see how they kind of handle it. And all the people that are in charge of special events just kind of do a deep dive on special events, and they just pick a different topic. So that's been a long running show for us. And then actually the longest running show, U Sports Mastery, with host Aaron Locks. He is a rec sports specialist, been doing sports and coaching for over 4 decades. And as I'd say, one of those global specialists when it comes to youth sports. So that's every Thursday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Also at 5 p.m. on every Thursday, we have something dedicated to the Young Professionals Network once a week. And then we close out the week with our newest show, The Aquatics Life, with our host, Wesley King, who is one of the most knowledgeable aquatic specialists in America. And really glad to partner with him and his team. If you have not watched any of his other shows and you have somebody in aquatics that's new to it or looking to just figure out something about lifeguards or how to run an aquatic center or the chemicals, I mean, the last 4 shows have just been so educational. So definitely get your whole aquatics team to rewatch those or tune in to this coming Fridays. All right, so before we get started and bring David on stage, we're going to play our 500th episode. Thank you to everybody that's come on and supported us and shared their journey in Parks and Rec with us. One of our very talented video editors, Chris, made this as a big thank you back to everyone else. So, Jovi, why don't you go ahead and play those 2 promos, and we'll come back. We'll start our conversation with David.
It didn't start with a big studio. It didn't start with a massive audience. It started with a simple idea. One conversation, one camera, one episode. Back then, DPRS Media Network was just a vision. No guarantees, no roadmap, just a purpose. To tell stories that mattered. Stories from the Parks and Recreation community. Stories of leadership, passion, impact, and the people making a difference every single day. Episode by episode, that vision began to grow. More conversations, more voices, more people who believed in what we were building. What started as a show became something much bigger. A place where people felt seen, a place where ideas were shared, a place where the Parks and Rec community could connect, learn, and inspire one another. And today, we celebrate a major milestone. 500 episodes, 500 stories, 500 moments, 500 reasons to keep moving forward. But this is not the finish line. This is the beginning of our next chapter. In the months ahead and in the years to come, DPRS Media Network is growing into something even greater. We are building something truly special for the Parks and Recreation community. Something designed to bring people closer, to create stronger connections, to open new opportunities, and to continue serving the people who inspire everything we do. We are also expanding our reach through new partnerships, working with organizations who believe in our mission, partners who share our vision for community, leadership, and impact. And beyond the screen, we're showing up in more places than ever before, attending conferences, meeting leaders face-to-face, building connections that strengthen our community. Because DPRS has never been just about content. It has always been about connection. To everyone who has been with us, from episode 1 to episode 500, thank you. This milestone belongs to all of you. Here's to how it all started. And here's to everything still to come. The future of DPRS Media Network starts now.
All right. How's your week going so far, David? Can you hear me okay?
I don't think I can hear you.
Oh, no. We did it again. We've had some technical difficulties getting it going. Let's see.
Can't hear you.
Well, let's see if it's on my end.
It was there and then it was gone.
Maybe try to I'll tell you what, Jovi, why don't you pick a promo and I'll set something else up.
Welcome to DPRS Media Network, the voice of Parks and Recreation professionals, where leadership grows, facilities thrive, and communities connect. Leadership Series, insights from the leaders shaping our industry. Facility maintenance, the backbone of safe and sustainable spaces. Young Professionals Network, empowering the next generation of Parks and Rec leaders. The Rec Room, real conversations, real stories, real impact. Youth Sports Mastery, elevating the game for athletes and communities. Smart Parks Forward, innovation driving the future of recreation. On the front line, honoring those who serve our communities every day. Athletes Commute, the journey behind the performance. The Aquatics Life, everything aquatics, safety, staffing, sustainability. Safe Spaces and Green Spaces, a show exploring the connection between nature and mental well-being. And we don't just tell the stories, we show up where it happens. From local gatherings to national parks and recreation conferences, DPRS Media Network is on the ground, capturing conversations, highlighting innovation, and amplifying the voices shaping our industry's future. DPRS Media Network, connecting parks, empowering people, inspiring communities.
Back on. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
All right. Let's see. So you can hear me and I can hear you.
I think so. I think we're all set.
All
I'm
right.
gonna see if I can phone call real quick.
We'll see if that works.
There we go.
Oh,
Can you
we
hear
did
me?
it.
Awesome.
Hopefully it holds. We just wanted the internet world to know that this is live content. It's not AI generated.
We do our best.
That's right. How's your week going?
It's going well so far. Sun is
Yeah.
shining. It's a nice day outside, so can't complain.
Yeah, yeah. Now you're a program manager in
Mhm.
Parkville. That's what 8,500 people. Small.
Just about. Yep, growing pretty fast too. We're a
Yeah.
suburb of Kansas City, so we get a lot of a lot of folks from Kansas City come out to our
Oh, so you get
parks
a lot
as
of
well.
spillover.
We do. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. How big is Kansas City now? That's a growing city, huh?
Ooh, it's a good question. If I had to guess on the suburb side, I'd guess around. Apologies. Thanks for putting up with the technical difficulties there.
Right.
I would guess somewhere around 2.5 million in the entire
Wow.
metro area.
Holy
Yep.
cow. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it had blown up so much.
Yeah, it's grown pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. And so maybe take us a little bit back into your early story of how did you get involved in Parks and Rec? Were you involved as a child? Did you know about this industry early on, or you kind of discovered it later in life?
Yeah, so I started out as kind of the typical Parks and Rec kid. I played youth sports, from as early as I could walk all the way through up to high school age. Always in Parks and Rec. I never ventured into the competitive side, so I was very familiar with the programs themselves growing up, and then took that into high school. I kind of took a little break from Parks and Rec, as a lot of teens, do. It's tough to program for teens, as we all know.
Oh yeah.
But then going into college, I kind of rekindled that fire and started that up again.
Did you get a degree in Parks and Rec, or you finished in something else?
Yep, I started in physical education and then pivoted last minute to physical education adjacent Parks and Rec program, or excuse me, Parks and Rec. Oh gosh, what's the name of my degree? Parks and Rec management. There we go. There's so many different titles out there. So I got a bachelor's in Parks and Rec management. I have a master's in sports management as well, and I've kind of parlayed those into the jobs I've held. So
Yeah. And how did those two degrees kind of prepare you for what you're doing today?
well, my Parks and Rec management bachelor's degree in particular, the coursework was phenomenal. Just excellent instructors, really set you up to succeed day one. They put me through internship programs, field experience opportunities with the local Parks and Rec departments and YMCA's. Just a lot of hands-on practical training that I still use to this day. There was even a course specifically for program management and program design, and our final project in that class was to create a full program from scratch. And we used the binder technique and put all of our documents in the binder and turned it in for this grade at the end of the class. And I still have it with me today as kind of a reminder, to keep all my ducks in a row, if you will. And it helps with the organization part of things.
Yeah. That seems like it seems like a lot of degrees that you can get are, Parks and Rec is almost like I don't want to say it's like a sideshow, but it's kind of like a part of it. It sounds like the one you did is really geared more towards Parks and Recreation. Is that right?
Definitely. Yep. Yep. It was very much geared towards the programming administrative side of things. But of course, you can go into maintenance, you can go into
Right.
aquatics. There's all sorts of different tracks to take from that.
And what university was that?
I went to Northwest Missouri State University
Okay.
up in Maryville, Missouri, and they have an excellent Parks and Rec program. I can't hype them up enough. So
Yeah. We'll have to. Are you still in touch with your professors, or are they still teaching over there?
a little bit, yeah. I have a little bit of contact with them. I know a couple of them have retired and moved on, but I know a few of them are still there, hanging
Yeah.
around. So
We'll have to
very,
get them on the show because it's becoming unfortunately, it's becoming increasingly rare, and even some people are starting to merge that department or that degree with sports management or something that's not necessarily Parks and Rec related. So we definitely want to highlight them
yeah.
as college that kids could go to if they really wanted, specific to Parks and Rec. Tell us more about the internship component of it.
Yeah, so we had a really hands-on city Parks and Rec department in the town that I lived in for college. It's roughly the same size as where I am now, so it's nice familiar feeling.
Yeah.
The Parks and Rec department was very, very receptive to taking interns for to help them with summer leagues and help with the maintenance side of things, running those programs. So I got to learn. I got to dive right in and learn from Parks and Rec professionals who have been through what I was aspiring to go through, and that was super helpful.
Mm. Now, were you involved in YPN at all or NRPA during that whole process?
Not too much. We kind of discussed it as part of the coursework as a good resource to use,
Uh,
but I wasn't super involved, unfortunately. Trying to get more into it now, but
right, right, right. Um, and when did you graduate?
that was in spring of 2019. So
Okay, so not too long ago then.
yeah, not too
Yeah.
long, but not too soon. So.
Right, right, right. Now, how about y'all state association? Have you attended any of those things since you've been working full time?
Yeah, so this past February, we went to Columbia, Missouri for my first MPRA conference. That was awesome. The years past, I've been to KRPA on the Kansas side when I worked in Kansas, and similar but different in terms of how things were ran. And um, I loved the courses and getting to meet new people. I can't recommend going to those enough, even as college students. That was one of the other components of my university is they had scholarship opportunities to go to the conference as a college student,
Oh,
which
nice.
is just immensely helpful when you're networking and getting to know folks in your own areas. So I
Yeah,
loved going to conference. Can't
yeah.
hype it up enough.
What was some of the things that kind of impressed you when you first started attending those?
Just the level of detail to with the courses themselves and the specific there are certain niches in Parks and Rec that don't get talked about a whole lot. And our conferences, at least that I've been to, have hit those niches. They really talked about partnerships, um, certain aquatics things that you may not think of, just getting really into the weeds with some of the practical day-to-day things that you have to deal with as a professional. And yeah, so I appreciate that coming from other Parks and Rec professionals who have done it and who have been through
Right.
that process.
Now, how did they cover partnerships? And we're talking about like public-private partnerships when you're looking for, like in your local community, or how did they frame the partnerships out of it?
So the partnership portion, it did have to do with public-private, public-public, things of that nature. Different resources to look for. The lady who spoke at that particular class is actually from my area, so a lot of the same groups that she had mentioned, as potential partnership options, I was aware of, which was awesome. And we talked a lot about making it obviously mutually beneficial, adding a
Mhm.
marketing component for those groups. We here in Parkville, we partner a lot with our Fourth of July and Parks and Rec Month programs
Mhm.
in the summer, and we really rely on our community partners to sort of run those classes for us as a community kind of service
Yeah.
component. And so to deepen those relationships, and that was kind of the crux of the class.
Oh, yeah. Now, what was your first kind of, I guess, once you became like a full-time Parks and Rec professional, what was the first job you had?
So I was a recreation specialist,
Uh,
adult and youth sports out in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So I packed up my little car from grad school in Massachusetts, drove all the way out to Wyoming. The wind
wow.
blew me out that way, so it's
Right.
very windy out there. But so I mostly worked with obviously adult and youth sports, building out those programs. Cheyenne's a pretty decent size city, biggest city in Wyoming, about
Mhm.
75,000 residents. There's also a prominent Air Force base in town. So it was interesting to see the dichotomy of, you have the public Parks and Rec department and um, they had a small Parks and Rec department on base there. Getting to work with those folks a little bit was awesome. But running adult leagues, children's leagues, trying to develop some new things, growing volleyball into a juggernaut out there that is
Yeah.
still going strong today. And Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how did you find that job? Did you just kind of went on a job board and just said, I'm willing to take a position anywhere in the country, or did you kind of seek, going out west or?
Yeah, there was a component of that, kind of throwing darts at the dartboard and seeing what stuck. Obviously, when you're hunting for your first job, you're gonna cast a wide net unless
Right.
you have a specific area that you're targeting. But I was open to work and open to trying something new. I wanted to go somewhere new that I've never been before, so that was how I landed in
Yeah.
Wyoming. But I would encourage everyone who is searching to check out the NRPA job boards,
Mhm.
your state associations. Each state has a pretty prolific job board as well, and most of them update that pretty frequently. So if you're looking out of state, there's plenty of opportunities out there. You just have to kind of know where to look.
I've actually got a couple of college interns that helped us produce the YPN, and one of them reached out to me and asked if there was some job available or something. I'm gonna have to point him in that direction. So there's a job board that you can, I guess, access, and it shows all the available jobs that are posted there.
Absolutely, and I know with NRPA specifically, when I was hunting for jobs a long time ago, they update that pretty frequently, and you'll get
Yeah.
jobs posted from all over the country. It's a great resource to have in your
Yeah.
back pocket.
So when you say you scaled the volleyball, is that something that was kind of new and you just built it up from where it was, or how did that?
Yeah, so we had that program long before me, of course, for several years, and it was right around, 50, 60 participants, pretty stagnant. And it ended up growing so big, sort of organically by word of mouth. There's a lot of factors that could have played into that, but it ended up growing organically 4 or 5x in the 2 years I was there. And
Wow.
when I left that position and handed it off to the next person, they started a spring league to kind of complement
Mhm.
the fall league, and that was a big hit as well. I think a lot of kids in that community just wanted to play year round, have something to do year round, and that was a great indoor option, knowing how kind of crazy the weather can be out there in
Right.
Wyoming. So
Yeah.
I think that was another reason, was the indoor component to that one.
Yeah. So what's your kind of recipe for success if let's say you're a young professional and you're given, a new sport that you want to bring on, what's kind of the ABCs to kind of get things ramped up?
Yeah, well, marketing's huge. Again, trying to work with community partners where possible. Um, you may be able to get some donations that way, some sponsorships. Spread the word. That would be my biggest piece of advice: was spread the word any way you can. Social media, get creative with it. Create some fun videos that catch people's attention.
Yeah.
um, get the registrations going, and just know that it's going to be a slow process. Sometimes it's not going to boom overnight. You might have a couple years of slow growth, but slow growth is better than no growth, so you
Yeah.
want to just keep plugging away.
Yeah, so I know a lot with social media marketing in Parks and Rec departments. It's typically like a part-time job for a college kid that's volunteering or something. They get the marketing efforts. Um, any I guess, did you just kind of stay active on the Facebook page of the city that you were working with?
Yeah, we definitely pushed our Facebook quite a bit. We
Uh-huh.
Another big tactic we used was email blasts. We sent those out
Mm.
quite a bit. We pestered the city page to post some of our items on there as
Right,
well.
right.
um, Obviously, they have 2 or 3x the exposure that we have, so it's
Yeah,
all about kind of just getting started, and a lot of times it snowballs from there.
yeah. And so then how long were you in that position and where did you go to next?
So I was in that spot for 2 years,
Uh-huh.
and then the wind blew me away to
Uh-huh.
central Kansas,
Uh-huh.
where I ended up being the recreation supervisor, um, for another small town, roughly about the size of Parkville. And again, running sports mostly. I had a hand in the events, but that definitely wasn't my primary duty. And then partially, facility supervision and facility management was another
Yeah.
small piece of the job.
And I remember you mentioned to me that, you kind of aspire to be a director. So I think at this point, you're just trying to get the expertise and the experience and skill set. Kind of where's your head at as far as the skills that you're adding to your skill set?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. It's really important to be cognizant of your blind spots and what you're good at. So I think for me personally, I have the programming side, somewhat down, at least down enough to be competent. There's always room for improvement, but
Right.
and then you look towards more of the administrative things. Grant writing is one of my blind spots that I'm going to be working on this year.
Mm.
Um, kind of diversifying into aquatics and learning more about that aspect. Obviously, as a director, you're going to oversee a lot of different components that you may not have otherwise been exposed to coming from, your niche area. So that's sort of what I'm working towards now, is
Yeah.
diversifying a little bit.
Now, where was your first exposure to like management where you actually have like a team underneath you that you're kind of responsible for?
So all the way back in grad school, I did a grad assistantship with the campus rec department, a
Yeah.
little bit different. And we were in charge. It was myself as the grad assistant and my director, who was above me. We were in charge of the rec facility, and we had about, oh gosh, 50, 60 student staff at any given time.
Oh, wow.
And so I was mostly above them, and then the
Mhm.
director above me with, supervision as well.
Yeah.
So that would have been my first experience. Talk about a strange environment to be in. You're 1 or 2 years out of college, and then you're supervising, people that are almost the same age as you. So
Right.
it
Right.
it taught me a lot about how to deal with people and deal with some
Yeah.
situations. So
That's one thing we don't talk a lot about, or at least I haven't had the opportunity to talk a lot about, is basically the Parks and Rec department on each college campus. I mean, they pretty much have their own Parks and Rec department for the students. How is that different than running, working with a city?
yeah, so I went to a private university. Obviously, the first thing would be the funding aspect. There's not as much, red tape, I guess you would call it, working in a campus recreation setting. You also have kind of a different set of programming, so it's similar but different. Intramural sports are um, obviously they're tailored towards college students and
Mhm.
built around their schedules a little bit. And then you're obviously hiring a different demographic of people a lot of times, and that's student employees. You're not. I've had jobs where I've hired um, adults and senior citizens as
Mhm.
site supervisors, but this is tailored specifically towards the college kids and making that experience fun for them.
Yeah. And then your director, that was more of a like an adult full-time job for them that ran. I
Mhm.
imagine that's headquartered out of the rec center
Yep.
out of
Yep,
each
we were.
university.
Yep, both out of there.
And then as far as programming, I guess most of your programming is just, oh, what do you call those? Intramural leagues, stuff like that?
Mhm. Yep, intramural sports, we tried to offer a wide range, but it seemed like the main few sports, flag football,
Yeah,
baseball, or softball, basketball, those were the ones that really
yeah.
stuck.
And they never do any special events or anything like that? Or like
Not where I was. I assume, some departments with bigger staffs and budgets might tackle
right,
those, but I think a lot of times too, campus rec departments work closely with student life and
right,
those sort of departments, and they might play an auxiliary role in a student life event, but we didn't unfortunately run our
yeah.
own events.
So it seems like the lessons you could learn at a university if you work there or do an internship there is gonna be like running a massive community center. I imagine that would be all the lessons you're gonna pick up there.
Yes, yep, that's pretty
Yeah,
spot on. Yep.
yeah. Okay, so then how did you get to the position you're in now?
So after Kansas, I moved a little. I'm originally from the Kansas City metro, so
Uh,
I decided to move a little closer to home here, sort of take that next step in my career ladder, if you will. And now I oversee. It's again another very small department. That's been a theme in my career so far,
yeah,
but I am now in charge of all programming aspects, and we essentially started from almost nothing. We had a few programs that had been around for a while, but we're still a pretty young department. We've only been around for about 3 years. So I'm the first person in this position, and I was tasked with building out a full program calendar and among some other marketing initiatives. But so yeah, we're in the process of seeing what works and what doesn't. We
yeah,
just held a really successful Touch a Truck event back in March, and that going into it, that was our first one we've ever done. So we weren't sure exactly what the crowd would be like, but it was a huge turnout. So that's sort of, I guess you could say this job and this part of my career has been the building stage.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something I want to. We're kind of at the halfway break, so we'll take a little commercial break. But when we get back from the commercial break, I wanted to talk about what it's like to kind of launch a department, because a lot of Parks and Rec departments aren't really a department, and then kind of like what you were involved in 3 years ago, the city decided this has to be its own department and stuff. So we'll chat about that, and then farmers market a little bit, and special events. But all right, so during our halftime break, we were going to give a big shout out to two of our biggest sponsors. One of them being Outdoor Link. They've been one of our earliest sponsors. If just like you have these smart homes where you can turn your lights off and on, and your AC in the garage door. Imagine if your whole city was a smart city where everything was interconnected, so you could control your splash pad, your parking lot lights, your baseball field lights, your bathroom door locks, all with a cell phone or a laptop. And so it's way more efficient than sending like a person in a truck to go turn a disconnect off and on. And so they're one of the best companies that does that. Actually, one of the few companies that specializes in that for the Parks and Rec industry. So big shout out to Dave and his team over there. And then also the National Academy of Athletics, which also sponsors our Youth Sports Mastery show. Aaron Locks has a great company that helps run everything from after school care to all sports, and they provide the coaching and registration and everything. So they do this nationwide, and they've been doing that for quite a while. So Jovi, why don't you go ahead and play those two promos, and then we'll come back. We'll finish up our conversation with David.
In today's parks and recreation industry, communication, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. That's where Outdoor Link comes in, delivering smart technology that empowers city departments and community planners to do more, smarter. Outdoor Link's platform connects and automates everything that keeps your parks running smoothly, from lighting and locks to signage, water features, Wi-Fi, and digital advertising. Control and schedule park lights for safety and energy savings. Remotely manage facility access. Coordinate fountains and splash pads. Provide public connectivity. All from one simple, unified platform, giving you real-time control, data, and cost efficiency. For parks and recreation agencies, that means safer spaces, smarter resource use, faster responses, and stronger community engagement. And behind every great park story is great infrastructure. That's why Outdoor Link proudly supports DPRS Media Company, helping the daily Parks and Rec show amplify the voices of professionals shaping our communities every day. Outdoor Link, smart, connected solutions for parks, recreation, and beyond.
They say it's just rec. Just rec, where kids learn to try again. Just rec, where confidence begins. Where teamwork, effort, and fun matter more than trophies. It's not about perfection. It's about participation. It's not just rec. It's where kids learn to love the game and themselves. It's just rec until they learn teamwork for life. It's just rec, but it's everything to them. It's more than rec. It's a movement. It's just rec until you realize it's shaping the next generation. Together, we're not just running programs, we're building a culture of confidence, connection, and community. Join us.
All right. So I'm a huge fan of farmers markets. That's where I get almost all of my food. So tell us about the new farmers market that y'all just launched.
Yeah, so last April we just opened up our new farmers market structure. To give a little backstory and context on our old one, we had a structure that was a little bit smaller than our current one, and back in 2022 it got hit by a vehicle and yeah, caused enough structural issues that it had to come down. So since then to now, last year we rebuilt it, and it's bigger and better than ever. And we're actually about to open up for the season here, not next Saturday, but the Saturday after. So we're
Yeah.
super excited about that.
That wasn't you that ran the car into it just so that we could get a new one, huh?
It was no, it wasn't.
That'd be a nice, a quick hack.
Right.
Demolish the old one. So tell me, as far as how many vendors do y'all have? And because we have a little small farmers market from the old community I went to, and it's just huge, and it's kind of like under 10,000 people, but man, they just all come out for it. Is it like once a week or a couple times a week?
Yes, we have two days a week, on Saturday mornings, of course, and then Wednesday mornings as well. I know the Saturday mornings there's a long wait list to get your spot. I think we have 18 or 20 stalls,
Nice.
and then a huge parking lot where we kind of put some of the overflow folks. And
Yeah.
it's a massive draw. It's right downtown, right in the heart of Parkville. Parkville's already a kind of a regional destination in terms of beauty and things like that. So people love
Yeah.
to come for the farmers market and stay for the day.
Now, is there any lessons that you learned, like what not to do, what to do, what makes a successful farmers market?
Well, I think we've been lucky to kind of piggyback off the success of the old structure, and even in the 1 or 2 year hiatus that we had in between structures, we were able to bounce back. So marketing is a big one. Obviously, we have a really solid farmers market board and farmers market team that market that extremely well. They have a great relationships with all the farmers and vendors, and we have a really good relationship with our farmers market chair and the manager who runs the day-to-day things. We sort of just oversee the facility
Yeah.
mostly, and they kind of do all the day-to-day things.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of trust in them, and they've been doing it very well for years.
Yeah, and the ones I've been to, at least here in New Orleans, it's good. It's a good mix of food trucks. So I'd say we probably got about a third food trucks and maybe a third actual food vendors. Well, like where they're selling vegetables and plants and stuff like that. And then they even have like a little arts and crafts area where people kind
Yeah.
of sell their. Do you have kind of a similar mix, or?
Yeah, we do. We don't have as many food trucks, but we do have a lot of people who sell their kind of their creations, I guess you call them, their
Right.
their art, necklaces and rings and things of that nature, and then a ton of farmers being out here in the heartland. You get a lot of people growing stuff. So
Oh yeah, that's the best place to get your food. Definitely get your food
absolutely.
from the farmer that grew it. That's the
Mhm.
best place.
Definitely farm to table.
That's right. And I'm shocked at how much Parks and Rec departments are just dominating the farmers market. I mean, I don't know, if I had to guess, probably 80–90% of all farmers markets somehow touch the Parks and Rec department, if they're not wholly run by the Parks and Rec department. That's really important to that part of the community.
Yes.
Tell me about the Touch a Truck special event. I know that I've heard of this from. What's the general concept for people who haven't heard of that?
So the general concept for a touch a truck event is to it's mostly geared towards kids and all the way up to through teen years. It's mostly for them to come and experience what it's like to sit in the driver's seat of an excavator or a big rig, and touch them and feel them, kind of climb around on them and get some education on it. And so I guess the general would be to just explore the cool big
Right.
vehicles and come out for a nice day in the park. And going back to partnerships, that was one of the biggest programs we've had in terms of partners. I reach out to these groups, and they're generous enough to lend me their vehicle for the day and a
Right.
staff member to come out. And it's like,
Right.
dang, the power of partnerships is pretty great. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the general premise. We ended up having about 1,500 or so, which, for a town of
Wow.
8,500 is
Yeah.
quite a lot. So we were thrilled with that.
I bet you the kids love it. Do y'all get like the power companies with the bucket trucks and crane trucks, and then the heavy equipment? And I imagine the fire trucks too, huh?
Oh, yep, absolutely. The fire truck was a huge hit. The kids got to sit in the back of the police car, and they'd shut the door on them for a second, so they were, pretending like they were getting taken away, and it was cool. Ambulance and all sorts of cool vehicles.
Oh man, I've never been to one of these events. I bet you they have one here in New Orleans. I just haven't
Yeah.
heard about it. I just got to look it up. And you know, I think that goes for most citizens. It wasn't until I created this media company, even though I was a vendor in this community for a decade in a former life, it seems. I had no idea all that Parks and Rec offered in the city I grew up in. And now I know. I'm like, man, I wish I would have taken advantage of all that stuff.
Yep, I feel the same way. Growing up
Yeah,
in a small town, you just don't realize it until you move away and you can see it from a
right.
different lens.
Yeah. And it's quite different when you're actually in the industry working so hard, and it just I can tell it blows the Parks and Rec professionals away that people don't know about what they're doing, because it seems like they're constantly shouting out, "This is what we do. Come join this festival," and it's still the best kept secret.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about facilities maintenance. I know this is something that you had mentioned that you really love the staff on the maintenance side. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I myself, going back to strengths and weaknesses, this is definitely one of my weaker areas is facility
Uh,
maintenance. But I I have had staff in the past that, especially when I worked back in campus recreation, we would have machines break down, and it was my job to make sure they got fixed. So I would try to outsource that to somebody who knew way more about it than I did.
right.
And you pick things up along the way. You learn little tips and tricks when it comes to pool chemicals and how to balance the pH and all that stuff. Definitely one of my weaker overall subjects, but now I'm trying to dig a little bit more into playground safety and
Yeah.
maintenance on that front. So that's kind of my next target.
Now, have you dug into project management? If y'all have to like redo a playground or even just paint a room or something, have you kind of dipped your toe in that at all?
I haven't, but we do have a wonderful part-time project manager here who works
Uh,
solely with the parks department, and I've definitely picked up a lot of great tips from him. He's a retired architect, so he's got a lot of knowledge to share.
Oh yeah, that's a lot. And we had a guest on the show that there's actually a project management certification. It's a global certification, and we spent 3 shows just on that one. He had like 4-inch binders
Yeah.
that he had to get a test on each time, and I had no idea how extensive it was to push a project, even if it's just like a little playground. And this can be like a whole year in planning and constructing, and then follow up through all that stuff. And
Yeah.
that's just one side of it. What are some of the other sides of facilities maintenance? Like you said, on the swimming pool side, of course, you got to cut the grass.
Yeah.
What are the other things?
Yeah, you have the routine items that you take care of on a daily or weekly basis, changing the trash, wiping down surfaces, cleaning restrooms, and then you have more of those infrequent type, the
Mhm.
furnace breaks, or a light fixture goes out, things that you aren't going into the day knowing you're going to have to do, but sometimes you got to step in and take care of those items. A busted pipe, things that aren't as fun to deal with as, or not
Yeah.
as easy, I guess, as just taking out the garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was one of the electricians. My dad had a little small electrical company. It was just him by himself. And one of his and that's how he paid for us to go through school and college and everything. But one of his clients was a couple of cities that we lived in and were neighbors. And they weren't big enough. They were the same size as y'all. They weren't big enough to have their own electrician. So if anything aside from a changing a bulb out happened, we were the ones that they called. So I guess you could say we were one of those public-private relationships that they would
Yeah.
call on. Y'all do the same thing? Y'all have little local vendors that y'all use?
Yeah, we do. We have quite a few contractors that we work with. We're actually getting some repairs here to City Hall, and we've been working closely with them to outsource a lot of that. We don't, we're not a big enough city to have our own in-house
Right.
facility maintenance staff, unfortunately. But yeah, it's the
Yeah.
power of partnerships again, working with these groups and staying on good terms with them.
Yeah, I know one day you might get a handyman that's a half electrician, plumber, carpenter, jack of all trades, and he'll handle the bulk of it except for the big stuff. We had several cities that we worked with that there was always some handyman that was like, "All right, this is above me." They
Yep,
would call us
pass it
in.
on to somebody who knows
Right.
better. Yep, I get
Yep.
it.
So where do you see yourself in the next, I don't know, 5, 10 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been kind of mulling that over. I love where I'm at now. We're still building a great program base,
Mhm.
and we've got some awesome new marketing initiatives coming out, a program guide, sponsorship opportunities. But eventually, I'd like to someday be in upper management of some kind, whether that's being a director, a superintendent, a facility manager, kind of
Mhm.
wherever I'm, I'm kind of open to any of those career paths. They're all similar but different in their own way. They all have
Yeah.
their own, finite details. So
Yeah. Now, what would you say is your why? Like, why do you continue to, you know, hang your hat on the Parks and Rec industry and have chosen this as your career path, or how does that kind of feed you?
yeah, I like to make a difference. I think it all kind of boils down to that. I like to make a difference. A lot of times in Parks and Rec, you can make both tangible differences that you see in terms of, erecting a full farmers market structure. That's obviously one that you can see
Right.
every day. And then you make intangible differences as well, putting a smile on a kid's face. They go home after the touch a truck, for example, and they're talking about it all day, and now they want to be now they want to drive a big rig for their career.
Right.
So there's a lot of different motivational factors that you can draw from as a Parks and Rec professional, but for me it kind of boils down to that.
Yeah. All right. So maybe you can help me pitch the industry. We do have a lot of college kids that watch our shows and stuff. And so if imagine you're sitting in front of a group of college kids that have no idea this industry exists and really don't know what they want to do with their life, what would be your kind of testimony as to why they should choose Parks and Rec as a career path?
Yeah. um Gosh, there's so many reasons. I would say, your day looks different every day. You're not always doing the same mundane task over and over. As a programmer, especially, you get to work with a lot of different community groups, and you get to know the folks that you get to know your neighbors, so to speak, especially in smaller towns. You get to build that community pride. You really work towards something that's greater than yourself, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
um, you're a public servant. At the end of the day, you're doing a lot of work that you know it goes unnoticed a lot of times, but you know that you're making a difference in the community, and that's really the important part.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think unfortunately we don't think about leaving a legacy and making a difference till we're retired. But in Parks and Rec, you can start making an impact and making a difference and really changing your community in your 20s, 30s, and 40s in your best years.
Mhm.
All right, so we do have a question for you from one of our previous guests. It's kind of a little tradition that we have. Let's see. This comes from Kelsey Paul over in West Manchester, Pennsylvania. Her question for you is, and this is a rough one. If you had to pick a dream job that's not Parks and Rec, that's the one that bites pretty hard.
Ooh, yeah.
What would it be?
Oh gosh. Well, in a perfect world, I guess I'd say professional athlete, but it's not a perfect world. So,
Yeah.
um, oh gosh, you know, I don't know. Maybe some sort of job that I can teach and coach. Maybe a coach, a professional coach. I,
Yeah.
I really enjoy coaching, not professionally, in rec
Right.
leagues, and I love again making a difference in young people. So I would say some sort of coaching,
Yeah.
sports or life, I guess.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the importance of rec sports, because it seems like at least for a while there, and maybe even still today, um, sports has been kind of almost or is getting captured by these elite travel teams where the kids just start at like a very young age and do one sport, baseball, all the way through, and they kind of get burnt out. Um, but rec sports is where all kids can come, even though if they're not going to be a D1 athlete, they still get those life lessons and stuff. How important is it? Are you seeing that is to your community to have strong rec sports?
It's extremely important, especially in the previous jobs I've been a part of. That is the number one way to keep kids busy, to give them something to do, and you build so many life skills. I remember playing youth sports myself. You build the teamwork, and you build the discipline, you build the internal. A lot of it's internal as well. The coach can
Mhm.
can hype you up all they want, but you have to kind of dig deep and figure a lot of these things out yourself. So it teaches you resolve and um, just all the life lessons you get. You can't overstate how important those are, and carrying those with you. And you also make friends that way. That's part of building community and part of why we do what we do as
Right.
parks professionals. Um, yeah, there's just so many reasons to
Yeah.
play. It's play, and from a physical aspect, you're working on your hand-eye coordination, all those things.
Yeah. Yeah, parents should definitely get their kids involved in as many sports as possible. Even if they're not like the most athletic kid, they might be the next great cellist, but they, you do learn a lot of great lessons, life lessons in sports. And Parks and Rec is definitely a place that's not so focused on winning the game as much as just teaching good life lessons through coaching and stuff. How about coaching in general? What does that do for you do you still coach kind of little local
Yep.
leagues through the Parks and Rec department? What
Yep.
sport
Yep.
do you coach?
Mostly soccer. I'm a big soccer guy. Love basketball too, football. I mean, I'll coach just about anything, but it's I love coaching for a lot of the reasons I outlined before. You get to see a change in the kids from week 1 to week 8 or however long the season is.
Yeah.
I've had some kids who only make one basket the entire season in basketball, and that's like the
Yep.
greatest moment of their life so far.
That
So
was me when I was little.
right, me too. So yeah, nothing beats that. The roar of their parents in the crowd when they make that bucket and see that big smile on their face. It's priceless. It's important to give back further than the job is what I always like to think.
All right, so this should be a big year for you then as far as soccer. Do you have like do you have your top 4 teteams for the
Top
World Cup?
4, yeah, I'd have to go USA 1 through 4.
Ah.
If you're gonna make me pick another, it's kind of funny. Kansas City is one of the host cities, of
No
course.
way.
Yep, Kansas City is a
Oh my
host
goodness.
city. They're going to play games at Arrowhead, not too far away from here. And the Netherlands actually is going to have a home base about 10 minutes away. So they're going to use Parkville a lot for, like, they have a home base set up here in Parkville.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of Dutch folks and a lot of orange coming up. So I have to pull for the Netherlands a little bit.
Yeah.
And then USA, Mexico and Canada. Let's get the local teams to win one here. So
Yeah, I had a friend of mine said it. Did he say Spain is looking really good? And
yeah, they're
maybe
pretty
Argentina
tough.
and Brazil. I think those are always have strong teams.
Yeah, those are strong ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on the show today and muscling through our technical difficulties in the early half. Any closing remarks as to or actually, I did want to ask you, where do you think Parks and Rec is going? We've got so much technology and AI and robotics and social media, and it seems like Parks and Rec is more important than ever, it seems, because of all this. Where do you see Parks and Rec playing a role in kind of the future 10, 20 years?
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. In this digital world we live in, any chance we can get to escape and go out to a green space and exercise, to be social, that's kind of where Parks and Rec is at its strongest, and that's where technology is at its weakest. So if we can draw some folks into our parks and putting down their phone. I watched the Masters over the weekend, and it was really awesome to see no one on their phones. Everyone's
Yeah.
enjoying the tournament and chatting with one another. So that's kind of the angle I think we need to take as Parks and Recreation, is to use technology to our benefit, but there's always a time to unplug, and that's kind of where we step in. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think unplugging is more important now than ever. And especially since you've got a place to unplug in every city in America and you've got stuff going on, you really have no excuses.
Absolutely.
But David, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. And thank you so much for dedicating your life to, pushing this industry and keeping your local cities beautiful. Keep up the great work.
Thanks for having me. And I look forward to seeing future episodes.
Yeah. Great having you on the show. Thanks a lot, David.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye. All right. So that was another great, I didn't realize that that was a host city, Oklahoma City. That's going to be one of the big ones. I guess Sevi mentioned that to me. He gave me his top 4. That was our show yesterday. And so this is going to be a big year for sports, especially for soccer. It's a massive deal to be able to host the World Cup in your country. And this is, I don't know when the next one's going to happen. So definitely get your tickets. And I know a lot of Parks and Rec departments are doing special events all centered around soccer for this year. So that's going to be a really exciting event. All right. So stay tuned. Next up, we have On the Front Line with host John Prue. So if you're in the military, you know somebody in the military, and especially if they work with MWR, the Military Rec Show is every Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And so go grab you a cup of water, stay tuned, and we'll be right back with that. Thanks a lot, Joby. You can go ahead and wrap it up.
This year, we didn't just attend an event. We became part of something bigger, IPRA 2026 brought together leaders, innovators, and community builders, all united by one mission: to strengthen parks, recreation, and the people they serve. For DPRS Media Network, it was an honor to join IPRA 2026 and take part in meaningful, real-time conversations, capturing stories and amplifying voices that matter. To IPRA, thank you for creating a space where collaboration thrives and the future of parks and recreation is shaped together. We extend our deepest gratitude to Amelia and all our partners who made these live interviews possible. IPRA 2026 wasn't just an event, it was a reminder that when communities connect and stories are shared, impact follows. From all of us at DPRS Media Network, thank you, IPRA. Thank you, partners and sponsors. We're honored to stand with you and excited for what's next.
Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product, growing your presence in public spaces, targeting cities, counties, or departments, DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion parks and rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move parks and rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them.